Good morning, Barb. It's our April show for Dover Apothecary. How are you?
I'm great, Dave. How are you?
Good, good. Now, what are we talking about today? I was curious. I think we're going to dive into digestion, are we not?
We are. It is time to do that. April is Cancer Month, and my a lot of my passion for what I do in my practice and my focus on digestive health. It's because of having lost my sister at only 43 years old to colon cancer. And, there are so many digestive health issues that can be mitigated if they're addressed early on. And if people understand what their symptoms mean and that digestive system, with 80% of our immune system being in the gut, we have to pay attention to that. And with all the over the counter products that are out there, a lot of people are using a band-aid approach to their health when they really need to be taking a deeper look, checking out what's in the toilet bowl.
Was I got a quick question because when you said that, and we've talked about your sister before with her passing with colon cancer, is that sort of the premise that made you dive into understanding better digestive health? Was it that moment that you became sort of engaged with it?
It really was. I mean, when my children were small, of course, they had a lot of digestive complaints. And so that was the beginning of the career path.
Okay.
But I did actually, before my sister passed away, promised her that I would continue my education, formalize it, get my diploma. And it was definitely because of Kathy's journey that I really started to examine the connection to, our food, so the nutrition source and density, our emotional health, just overall quality of life, but really understanding what those symptoms can be meaning and what that can all be masking when we're not addressing it.
And you just said emotional health. So are you saying that mental part contributes to your gut?
Hugely.
Okay.
So we've talked about the gut and brain connection
Right.
before, and we have what's called the enteric nervous system that is what runs between the two, and your gut is definitely your second brain. So when we get inflammatory conditions, that can really start to wreak havoc with the enteric nervous system. And all of that dysregulation affects our hormones, our enzymes, the whole aspect of digestive processes and the levels of inflammation, the microbiome in the gut. So it's all connected. I mean, if you stub your toe, it's your brain that tells you you've done it,
Ouch. Yeah.
right? It's all connected, and we can't we need specialists, we need our family doctors, we need proper diagnosis, but we can't lose sight of the fact that everything is connected.
So is there a lot of certain foods that cause that disturbance or start that problem in the stomach with your
Well, I mean,
digestive?
that's a very, very individualized approach, right? Everybody is completely unique. Our blood types are different. Our traditional foods, our genetic predispositions, our everyday life, and the way that we cope with stressors. All of these things are an interplay. If you're not getting enough fiber, if you don't have the healthiest of gut friendly bacteria that are there, all of these things are just small components of our overall health.
What are some of the signs and symptoms? Like when folks talk to you in your practice and at Dover Apothecary, what are some of the common problems that you're hearing about that sort of indicate that there's, secondary issues that you need to get the proper probiotics? Can you give us some examples of that?
Absolutely. So if somebody comes in and they have indigestion or a little bit of acid reflux, that's just kind of a one-off. They've been out for dinner somewhere in town and they come in and they're just like, whoa, like the heartburn is just, there are over-the-counter products that are, there are different ones. Some are better than others. So, speak to your pharmacist, speak to your doctor, speak to a professional. Don't just
Yeah.
the first thing that you see there or the cheapest thing. But, so indigestion in the upper digestive tract is one thing. And then the lower digestive tract, I mean, you can have somebody that is a little bit constipated, which is rare for them, or they've got diarrhea, which is uncommon for them. Those are kind of a one-off. And it's like, okay, well, what did you eat? Have you been exposed to a virus or a bacteria? And you kind of, it's a drill down menu. It's questions and discovering what those changes might be that have caused this. But if this is something that they're experiencing constantly, those are the flags go up, right?
Okay.
That's when we start to say, okay, because when we don't address something that is going on fairly consistently, that's when dis-ease. And I
Yeah.
always hyphenate that word, right? Because disease is just dis-ease in the body that caught early enough, the body has the capacity to heal itself, but you have to understand what tools it needs, what those puzzle pieces are for your body. So if it's very, very occasional, then you're usually fairly safe to maybe take a probiotic, maybe take some magnesium, but speak with that pharmacist. They're incredibly educated, and everybody knows, that Mike Gibbs is everything. It's why I'm there as a holistic nutritionist. It's because we have that same passion to help people that are motivated to help themselves to get down to the bottom of things. And so a little bit of acid reflux after an unusual meal for you. But if it's happening after every meal, or it's every weekend because you're partying with friends or having things you don't have during the week, those are the things that start to erode the health of your system and start to cause damage that can be more difficult to repair. And so that's why I don't like to see people just because you see all of these products in almost every store you walk in, and including on Amazon, doesn't mean it's normal.
Okay.
Poor digestion is not normal. It's not healthy. And it will catch up to you in one way or another.
So besides eating properly, what else can you do to sort of protect your digestive system? Like what is there products you can take or that you would recommend?
So overall, we want to make sure that the fiber balance is right.
Okay.
And Mike and I, we talk a lot to people about the soluble and insoluble fibers and the importance of good balance with those. We do a lot of work trying to get people to understand what those fibers are and where to find them in the diet. And I know we've talked about those in previous segments. We do have a great handout that we have at the apothecary that, people can take with them that is really helpful. But so that's an important thing. But enough water, right? You have to drink enough water because it's responsible for your ability to absorb nutrients, but also to detox the body. So if you increase your fiber, but you don't increase your water,
Yeah.
nothing short of a stick of dynamite is going to move things through your system. You're just going to plug yourself up even worse if you're constipated. And we find that a lot of people come in miseducated or perhaps misunderstanding what they've heard about adding bran into their diet. And suddenly that constipation's gone from here to here. And then you're hitting some of the more heavy duty laxative and stool softener products, which you want to avoid that if you can, right? And you think of your intestinal tract, think of it like a garden hose, all right? And so a nice new garden hose, and it's all rolled around nicely on your little spool and things like that. But if we start to get areas of constipation or areas where diarrhea is causing damage to that intestinal tubing, then we start to get little kinks, we start to get little bulged areas because it's literally eroding from the inside out. And once that happens, that's when we can end up with cellular changes and inflammatory conditions that require stronger medications. You can get infections. You may get polyps, then suddenly you're in for colonoscopies. You may have to have, it can go in a really bad direction really, really quickly. And, I lost my dad during COVID. It'll be 2 years this July to a bowel obstruction, complications of a bowel obstruction that, he had let go too long. it kept reoccurring. He'd get on top of it, but it kept coming back. And he didn't want to go for that colonoscopy. He was just really not receptive to going into hospitals at that point in time because of his concern about the virus.
Yeah.
And it did end up, being responsible for his demise because it was just too much by the time he got the help that he needed, despite the heroic efforts of a really amazing surgical team. So it's not something we can play with. It's not something
No.
that we can ignore. And it's something that your body is very miraculous at being able to repair itself if we understand what corrections need to be put in place early on. But, proper magnesium. Magnesium we talk about all the time being great for regulating, but very specific kinds of magnesium. If somebody's constipated, I wouldn't normally tell somebody to take magnesium citrate because it does cause the bowels to evacuate more effectively, or the magnesium oxide. I usually indicate to people to take a magnesium bisglycinate because that has an 85% cellular absorption.
Oh,
So the muscle cramps, tension, relaxation, you want that magnesium, but if you're bound up, then you're going more to the less expensive, less absorbable brands or formations that end up going mostly to the intestinal tract. So it's dose specific. It's having that conversation with a professional that understands the products, understands the conditions, and that's one of the things that we do really, really well at the apothecary is help people to understand what is going on. And if somebody needs to seek a specialist or needs that colonoscopy or needs to just darn well get into their family doctor, then we give them that, encouragement quite strongly that needs to happen. So
when should you start with, you mentioned prostate and colon, when should you start to have checkups? At what age is in both males and females? Is that something that you should start in the 40s and 50s, I guess? That's, what with my age, I get them, but I don't know when.
Right. And, it's going to be very individual
Okay.
specific because some people start with these issues in childhood. And if it's ignored in childhood, then that dis-ease process is in motion much faster. Any variation from your normal that you can't explain by something out of sync with your normal rhythms,
Yeah.
pay attention. Start keeping a journal. Start keeping a diary. Mark it on your calendar. Have a little health calendar. My sister's cancer happened to be incredibly aggressive. It's not, colon cancer can usually be dealt with even if surgical intervention needs to happen and the diseased section can be cut out and resected and that sort of thing. But in her case, she had a very aggressive cancer, and genetic testing has shown that it's something that our family will have to continue to go for colonoscopies regularly. My sister's daughter, she was only 14 when Kathy was diagnosed, and before Lauren was 16, my sister had passed away. So,
Yeah.
my niece will have to go starting at 30 years old for colonoscopies because of that family history. So it's really important to understand your family history. But on a daily basis, most people will really benefit by taking a good quality probiotic. If you've got the right good bacterial terrain in your intestinal tract, that is a really good defense system for your body, making sure those bowel movements are regular. I always go back to if you've got a dog and you're walking down the sidewalk and all of a sudden your dog has diarrhea and you've got this poop bag in your hand and you're like, what do I do with this? How do I clean this up? You're going to want to know what is different in your dog's diet. Did they get into something? Have you changed their food? Because it's not fun having to
No.
deal with it. You don't want it in your house. If you're off at work and you're thinking, oh, I hope they kept it together today. So with them, we pay attention quickly. If you've got an infant and you're changing that diaper, you're very mindful of those changes. But for ourselves, it's like look before you flush.
Yeah.
Every day, look before you flush, because all of those nuances, the color, the odor, the formation, the frequency of your bowel habits is hugely telling of everything else that's going on in your system with those digestive processes. What I've been really excited about with the Metabolic Balance Program is within 2 weeks of people having their program and with them having their specific food choices laid out for them to choose from, they're telling me within like sometimes 2 days to a week and a half how much these digestive problems have just cleared up for them that they've sometimes had for years. And that is just this happy side effect, weight loss aside, other, goals of the program aside. And they may not have even talked to me in their initial consultation that they were having any digestive problems. It
Yeah.
was just kind of, to them, it was normal. It was a one-off, and it didn't come up for whatever reason.
Huh.
But yeah, and so to have that feedback from them and have them feeling so good that their gas, their bloating, their acid reflux, that these things have just cleared up just because their body is being fueled by the specific food in their body.
It's crazy,
The
eh?
guesswork's out
Incredible.
of it, right?
Yeah.
The guesswork's out of it. The blood work, your history, your profile, all of that information going to those doctors, and then you get your food plan with your food list, and then that's all you choose from is that list. And then suddenly these problems are gone. Like that's huge. That's huge for people to get back their lives that way.
It boiled back to diet and exercise and just healthy living, right?
Yeah,
That's,
yeah.
those three
And
things
that's
that you preach.
for sure.
Wow,
For sure.
we covered a lot today with digestive, and I want to thank you for
We
taking
did.
the time to do this. And like you said, April's Cancer Awareness, so let's all chip in and help out. And thanks for sharing this today to Barb. I really appreciate it.
Welcome. Wishing everybody good health, and check it out before you flush, please.
There's wise words of advice from Barb today, folks. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Dave.